Previously on the Sunday Antisocial.
Russian space nukes. Russian space nukes. So there I am, Thursday morning, minding my own business, sitting at my desk, working as if it's my job, right? Like I'm just laser focused on getting my photos to perfection, but I've got one tab open, of course, because it's me, to the Drudge Report. I know a lot of people don't like the Drudge Report. I'm not a big fan of the person, Matt Drudge, but I do think that the Drudge Report is genius. Here's why. One of the holdovers from sort of the early internet days that still works. It's so visually simple. The model is incredibly effective and it's still going. And so yeah, you go over to the Drudge, if you don't know what it is, you go over to the Drudge Report and they've sensationalized every news story they can find. And they usually run a giant headline that says, something defamatory, and you look at the headline and then you move on, and there's little headlines beneath in 3 columns, and they're all in black courier typeface, except if they want you to read something, if they want to draw your attention to something, it's in red. Incredibly simple. So I'm working away and I tab over to Drudge and it's got the big headline on top. I don't even remember what it was at this point. And then below I see this little headline that's like, widespread cell phone outage. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And then I go and I edit some photos for another few minutes and then go up and get my coffee, I come back, I tab over again. Nationwide cell phone outage. And then I'm just working away, typity, clickety, edity, clickety, and then I look over again and now the little red headline has become the big red headline and it says, cell phone outage, is the world ending? And I think, maybe I should pay attention to this. Now, for some context here, we live under an air traffic corridor where occasionally the National Guard on test missions, training runs, will fly their giant Chinook helicopters like 100 feet over our house. So I'm sitting there thinking, I'm just gonna call my wife. I'm gonna see if my wife's phone was. I call my wife. My wife's phone works fine. My phone works fine. We're just chatting, and all of a sudden, the house starts rumbling. So I'm like mid-sentence with my wife, and my fevered amygdala puts these two things together and realizes cell phone outage, Chinook helicopters. It's the Russian space nukes. You can't get past me. I've seen Red Dawn. I know what's going on. Vlad, push the button. Everybody take the afternoon off. There's no work to do here. The stock market crashes. Planes are falling out of the sky. I hope you're not somewhere hiking the CDT and need to talk to your grandma on your satellite phone because it's down. So I push away from my desk. I do a commando roll into the safe room and get my rifle. I've got a bandana tied around my head and black paint under my eyes. And I'm like stalking through the living room, like looking out the windows for the Russian paratroopers. And then I see there's like a City of Asheville bulldozer like fixing a pothole outside. And that was what was causing the rumbling. I just hate election years. Do you know how much work it is to put all that shit back in the safe? So yeah, not today, Vlad, not today. Although, I mean, not to get too tinfoily about this, but does anybody know what actually caused the outage? This is the state of modern media today, that, there's like this huge story that actually does affect millions of people. They said 70,000 people, but 50% of the people I tried to reach had no service. That's more than 70,000. I don't know if it's millions, but a lot of people lost service. And they lost it for like 10 hours. And then the next day, I'm like, I wonder did anybody ever figure out what caused that? And like, you scroll 2 miles down on the New York Times website and it's like, we don't know. And what'll happen is 6 months from now, on the very bottom of Drudge in black, there will be a little headline that says, cause undetermined in February AT&T outage, and then you'll click through the story and it'll be some person from the FBI saying, yeah, we don't really know, and then some reporter will be quoted as saying, sir, was it a cyber attack? And they'll say, I mean, we can't rule out that it was a cyber attack, but certainly much more likely it was just an internal server error. You are watching the latest episode of the Gribbly's Folly Sunday Antisocial Hour. That time each week when I smoke my pipe and complain about humanity while answering all of its questions. And if you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments down below with the hashtag AskGribbs. Let's get to it, shall we? Rafa asks Gribbs, would a tutorial on taking care of briar pipes be a good idea? Maybe. So last time I was talking about how time intensive it is to make a good video. You can make a crappy video with like no time at all. Like you just sit and record the video and upload it. But if your brain never finishes a complete thought without serious effort, that's a bad idea. Like even back in the days when I was just using my cell phone to make these videos, I would hit the pause button all the time. Do you guys remember that? And then if I didn't hit the pause button and if I hit it but it didn't like actually actuate, and I would make the same joke 3 or 4 times to get a good take, that my brain could actually stay on task for 5 freaking seconds, and then it would end up in the finished video and Derek Tant would make fun of me. Anyway, to avoid all that, I shoot with actual visual arts equipment. I won't call this a video camera. What does that even mean? See, we're getting off task. The point is, these videos take a long time to edit and put together, and then after I've edited them, if I ever like zoom in and look closely at my actual face, I'm like, can I really put this out where the public can see it? Like seriously, like look at this shit. What happened to me? This is why when you watch Twitch, half of the gaming streamers are wearing like a Holocaust cloak and a Phantom of the Opera mask, because they're really just fat old guys in their 40s and they don't actually want you to see them. It really sucks being a photographer and knowing how to make people look good and knowing what light makes people look good, and then I put myself in that light and I still don't look good. I have to keep my beard trimmed because the gray in it will catch the light and I look like I've got a freaking albino porcupine as a face hugger from Alien. Getting old as hell, man. Anyway, what were we talking about? Yeah, tutorial on maintaining briar pipes. I think, and Rafa said in his question that he did not want me to try to bring everyone up to my level of pipe restoration skill. That would not be hard to do. I think if everybody just kind of went to Home Depot and got some sandpaper, that would pass the bar. You know, I can restore the bowl of a pipe pretty well, actually. I'm pretty good at that because I know my limits, and I know that if a pipe has a giant crack in it, you should just quit smoking that pipe. What is up with these people that are like, this pipe was dropped into a volcano and we're gonna restore it? No, sometimes you should just get a new pipe. I don't understand. Anyway, all right, I can restore the bowl. It's the stem is the problem. Anyway, I could certainly talk about my maintenance practices and what I do to keep my briar pipes in some kind of presentable condition. It's really all about buying a buffing wheel though, but yeah, okay, we'll make a video about that. Spoiler, one of the main things I do is just not care. That is, I buy pipes that I don't have to care about. This is my, here we go. I always hate changing the focus. All right. Nope, that's wrong. That's not right either. Here we go. Can we please actually focus? This is my Missouri Meerschaum Xenon. Notice the off-center sticker on the bottom. Come on, Missouri Meerschaum. And in it, I am still smoking a mix of Carter Hall and McClellan's 3 Oak Syrian, which is just, it's very delicious. Can I just please have a better face? Ken Barbie 0944 says, Gribbs, like it or not, the Space Force is a valid branch of the military and deserves respect, especially from someone who has never served. Well, that is true. And of course, I have nothing but respect for our servicemen and women. And I did actually educate myself a little bit. I looked up a video about the Space Force basic training. Gamecock Piper asks Gribbs, for the peak season, can you just have AI Gribbs host a few Sundays? No, I saw what happened to Taylor Swift. Do you know what would happen if we unleashed AI on this? Fireplug 1701D has started making videos again, by the way. Everybody go over to Fireplug's channel. Sir, I am ashamed to admit I have not watched your recent videos, but that is because I have not had my photo editing cycle, well, it was interrupted by the Russian space nukes. But generally, I watch videos while I'm editing, and I haven't really had time to sit down and edit the 15,000 files in my, literally in my backlog right now. I'm not stressed about this at all. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Fireplug 1701D asks Senor Gribbly, because the people on the phone address me as Senor Gribbly. Well, they didn't really. I made that joke, but it's because no one speaks English when they call you to tell you that you might be dying. So anyway, maybe you're having issues with the Mexican medical care system. I'm a man of the world. Seriously, I know a lot of, at least 2 people that go to Mexico to get their dental work done. Like they're gonna go down there anyway for cruises or retreats or cocaine, and they just get the dental work done while they're there because it's cheaper and just as good. I just hate driving too. I don't like traveling. I can't travel across town to my dentist's office is like 25 minutes away, and I get there and they're like, why are your teeth bleeding? I'm like, because I've been gritting them for 25 minutes in traffic. Got past your comments on the Elizabethan mixture as a chemical weapon video to say, bro, you should have just puked in the beginning. When I feel it coming on, regardless of cause, I lean into it and get it over early. There is something so, it is like whoever wired my brainstem definitely prioritized keeping the contents of my stomach in my stomach. I can't do it. I have tried once or twice, tried in the past. I am the guy that went through college with a really, really well-honed taste for bourbon and never threw up from being drunk. Never in my life have I thrown up from, I should not say this, knock on wood. Never in my life so far have I thrown up from being drunk. This is the level of visceral hatitude that I have for throwing up. Speaking of things that are nauseating, I had a lot of folks, this was actually very disheartening. I made a joke last time that if you were someone who contributed to the GoFundMe to bail out Donald Trump from his civil fines, which now I think are creeping up towards 600 million. If you were one of those people that contributed, or maybe you bought some spray painted gold sneakers or whatever, maybe you're like one of the 10 guys sitting in the Kremlin with a, like an XP era laptop, like giving to the GoFundMe, whatever, that you could come on the show and we could talk. That was a joke. I had a disheartening number of people write in and say that they would love to come on and talk. And how do you pull up? I don't want to make this channel a platform for fascism. I think that's how you say that. When I got those comments, I went back and looked at if you're not a creator, you can go look at your analytics and you can see where in the video people stopped watching. And when I started bitching about Trump, there was about a 10% decrease. Well, probably about 20%, because only 50% of the people make it more than 2 minutes into your video, right? Like in the first 30 seconds, you lose half your audience. And I guess because they see my face. And then, so we're at about 50% most of the way through a video. And I think that's pretty true across all videos. And then it dropped to 40% when I started talking about Donald Trump being a rapist con man. And so that's about a 20% from total, another 10%. And that drop, sad to see you go, by the way. That drop was minuscule in compared to the drop when I started talking about Minecraft. So there is that. Once again, nobody wants to see me have fun. Oh, Gribbs is playing a game, having a good time. No, not screw that. We will wrap up with a very insightful question from Rafa. Must the artist continue to produce great works beyond a few instances of genius to count as a genius? Did you know that Da Vinci felt like a failure? Like apparently his dying words were, "I have offended God with my failure of an artistic life." Talk about imposter syndrome. And I don't know enough about Da Vinci. To have a degree in art, which required 4 freaking art histories, I really don't know that much about any one artist. I know Picasso was still going at an elderly age. Picasso was also, that's a lot to unpack. That wasn't exactly your question though. Must the artist continue to produce works of genius to count as genius? And Rafa mentioned a certain Metallica concert. Sorry, we were talking about Metallica. You guys thought we were talking about actual art. No, we're talking about 80s thrash metal. So Rafa mentioned, that Metallica, even if their new music kind of sucks, that they are still keeping that old, the old music lives on in their live shows. And that is true. They do some amazing live work of that old material. And is that worth it? I think that we see this a lot in American music, that, you'll have an artist and their early work is amazing, their middle work is okay, and then at the end of the career, it really starts to fall off. And I think that is probably the natural progression of an artist. It's also probably it's what happens when you're young and you're pissed off and you're poor and you're broke and you're just trying to do the thing you love against all odds. And then when you start to succeed, you lose some of the fire, but also you realize that to succeed, you've got to play a game. And I think that Metallica is an excellent example of what happens when you play that game, when you just decide you're going to win the game. Like when you decide you're not going to really hold on to anything you had in the beginning. You're just gonna sell out. And I look at other artists' careers. I'm a big Springsteen fan. And by the way, I feel so lucky to be a Springsteen fan because I watched an Aerosmith video this week of them playing something live. And y'all, when you're in your 70s, the glittery pants, maybe not, okay? Like, just maybe. I'm not telling anybody how to dress. It's none of my business how 70-year-old, clearly strung out men choose to dress. But I felt very fortunate that my personal rock and roll hero is wearing the same clothes he was, which is like, you know, faded jeans and a black t-shirt. Like, that's okay. But you see Springsteen, like, the albums up to Born in the USA, and including, there is not a weak moment on any of those albums. Greetings, Wild and Innocent, Born to Run, Darkness, River, Nebraska. That's 7 albums. That is an artistic feat, no matter what. Like it, hate it, whatever. 7 albums worth of music that never once strays from its purpose. That's amazing. After Born in the USA, after the big successful tours, the biggest thing ever at that point. It was the first album ever pressed onto compact disc. After that, can't say the same. So that leads me to believe there is a certain element within the American music industry, or probably global, but I don't know anything about other music, so that leads me to believe that there is some sort of corrupting influence. But Rafa's question, I'm trying to stay on task. Rafa's question is, if you are once a genius, do you have to continue being a genius to be a genius? More and more, I start to respect artists that make their art and then leave. They just get out. David Lee Roth famously became, and I think he became an EMT in New York City after his music career. You know, can you imagine, like, you're having a heart attack and they put you in the ambulance and you look up and it's David Lee Roth and he's like, sit down, Waldo. And then there's Brian May, the guitarist from Queen. He was a genius guitarist and now he's a genius astrophysicist. He's 2 geniuses. To actually answer the question, Rafa, I think my perception is that no, you do not have to continue being a genius for the piece of art that you created to be genius. I think that the challenge is for the rest of us to dissociate the continued life of that person from the art. So you could say, you know, look at the 27 Club, right? Kurt Cobain, Jimi Hendrix, Amy Winehouse. These people, we all think of them as geniuses. Billy Corgan is still alive. Does anybody still? I certainly believe Siamese Dream, genius album. Can I listen to it without thinking about what a douchebag Billy Corgan is? No, unfortunately not. I've met the man several times. He was always nice to me, but looking back on it, I can totally see, like, this is the behavior of a classic narcissist. It sucks because I mean, that was a formative album for me. So, you know, I can see that I was never into Nirvana, but people that were really into Nirvana, they don't have to deal with that. They don't have to deal with watching Kurt Cobain getting old and fat. And so it's easier to say, gosh, he was such a genius. So that's the answer. Yes, it's possible, but it's difficult for human beings to look at each other and be like, man, you turned out like this? Well, now that old album, it's not as fun. I imagine that's how many of you feel watching my videos today. Thank you so much for sticking with me in spite of that, and I will see you next week. Keep the ends out for the ties that bind.